Hello and welcome back. So thus far we've looked at swapping out the same item, i.e. creating a nested family with several options of the same item. So that would be the single wood panel door having panel 1, panel 2, panel 3 as options within that door. Groupings of the same family, i.e. those 3 doors that we put all together in one configuration. And then combinations of 2 different families or groupings of 2 different families, i.e. our single wood panel transom door with the transom above the single wood panel door. These are 3 different ideas or ways to use nested families. So we looked at those as a good example for types of families that should be nested when looking at doors and windows and parameters that you may want to use to schedule. Now that we have that example of how to use nested families and different ways to create nested families, let's look at why we might not want to make a nested family for something. So for example, if you're adding a lot of detail to the model that you're not going to actually see. For example, on doors, if you're modeling escutcheon plates and hinges and doorknobs, you're not going to want all of those things to show in the model, which is a level of detail that can be included in the data for the door without actually being modeled by adding a shared parameter such as hardware type. So you can specify all those things in writing and have them show up scheduled, but you don't necessarily have to have a 3D object that is representing those things, because once you do that, you get into over modeling, and that's where you're just taking advantage of Revit's ability to create 3D objects and making everything 3D. But as a result, you end up bogging down the model and increasing your file size. And for something small or a small project like this floor plan that we're looking at here, you end up with enormous file sizes because you have 3D elements that are unnecessary. They're not giving you any additional information or indicating anything for someone who will be reading the drawings or building your project. So it's really unnecessary. Another example is when the items may be better off as a group or just as useful as a group. So as you can see here, I've already modeled this bathroom using a couple of families that are typical: the toilet, grab bar, and toilet paper dispenser. And here, I've created them as a group. And as you can see, you can tag them as a type, which is how you would typically put them in a legend. And you have all of the use, flexibility, and operability that you would need for these families. And you can create a nested family out of it, but you won't get anything additional out of it. So I've already created that nested family, so let's delete this one and go ahead and place that nested family. So let's go ahead and look for it in our project. So architecture component, let's go ahead and save the file or cancel. We don't need to do that. And they're typically in the list in alphabetical order. So let's try to get us to the top of the list again, architecture component. And I just called it accessible stall. So let's scroll on up to see if we can find it. And there it is, accessible stall. And I'm going to place it, and I'm going to use align and get that up against the wall where it belongs. So I'm getting out of the placement of that and going into modify so I can go ahead and align that. So we're going to select the wall and then use that reference in the family. Okay, so now let's go ahead and tag this. So we go ahead and tab, select to get to the grab bars and etc. And everything is behaving exactly the same way. I'm just going to go ahead and get these placed. And of course, there's nothing additional that we're getting out of this. So it's really unnecessary to go through the trouble of creating this nested family. Another example would be to say, well, before with the door family, we took all those different panels and put all of the different panel types in the same file and swapped them out, and that gave us some flexibility. So why not do the same thing with another family type? Well, in this case, we're using specialty equipment. Why not make a family of all the specialty equipment in my project and just swap out the different ones that I need? Let's see what happens if we create a family like that. So I've already created such a family. Let's go back to architecture component. And I simply called that family 47. So let's scroll down to that. And I'll just place that along this wall here. So right now it's the default of the toilet tissue dispenser. So let's go ahead and swap it to the grab bar. And I've created a shared parameter the same way we did for the panels for specialty equipment. And I'm going to switch it to the door, the same way we made that panel family with all the options for the doors. So now we have this grab bar here, and you'll see that everything works fine. It's swapped out. And when you select it, you see that the family image is a toilet tissue dispenser. So that is the only indication to someone else that there may be more than one item in this family, but more likely than not, they'll think that there's something wrong with the family. They're thinking, why is the image a toilet tissue dispenser, but I have a grab bar? It's not really an intuitive process, because how would they know if somebody new other than the person who created the family is working with the project? They won't know this. The only indication might be if they go down in the parameters and they see other and they see this list there. But if you had the actual toilet tissue dispenser showing and not the grab bar, there would really be no indication that all of the equipment is loaded into that same family. In this case, same category, i.e. specialty equipment, doesn't necessarily equal great idea for a nested family. So let's review good ways to use nested families, or good reasons to create nested families. So it will reduce the number of families placed in the model by using grouping and arranging of components. and it takes advantage of shared parameters. So you have parameters that can be tagged or scheduled, built within your nested family, and you have the flexibility or increased flexibility because of those parameters, because you have them nested and shared within that family. Another good example of a time where you might want to create a nested family is for a light fixture, where, say, the cover has different qualities and you want to test those qualities against bulbs of different wattage. So, for example, if you have a globe fixture that has a transparent cover option, a frosted cover option, and then you wanted to do lighting calculations for the difference between a 60-watt bulb and two 25-watt bulbs, then that would be a good idea to use a nested family. Because when you're scheduling those options, you can then enter the candelas and the output for the room to see whether or not it meets your requirements. So there you have it, the nested families, the shared parameter, which is the magic behind the nested family, and different ways that you can use it. So there you have it, the nested families, the shared parameter, which is the magic behind the nested family, and different ways that you can use it. I hope this course was informative and that you'll meet us back again for another video about different tools and workflows within Revit on Digital Tutors. Thank you and goodbye.